Today in ICHA Armory, this is one more aimed at school administrators who have a team that wants to form on their campus. How safe is the sport really? Let's talk about that. So, over the years I've been involved in the sport, I've had a number of people who have been tried to form a fence club at their middle school or high school. It might be a parent, might be a coach, might be a staff member who's a fencer. And there are usually several objections to the idea from the administrators. It might be that it's the price, it's expensive to start the sport up. It might be they can't find a coach, can't find a place to practice. It might be worried about safety. And these usually come from a place of misconception because they don't know any better. So let's talk about that a little bit. The cost angle. That's usually the first one that comes up because it can be expensive sport to start up. You have all the gear to get up, all the scoring gear, whatnot. But I invite you to price out a marching tuba or a set of marching tenors for your marching band program. Those are hideously expensive for a single item. The cost of a single marching tuba could outfit a team, a small team could outfit a team in one weapon. So look into that one. You can't find a club. Well, have you looked? Yeah, there are some places where there may not be a club in the area. Fair enough. You find somebody who fences who's willing to volunteer coach. There's a structure right there. I mean, limit the weapons you can fence. For example, I can teach foil and saber. I can't teach epee, but it can be done. Finding a place to practice, really, you don't necessarily have to have the gym. I've known clubs to practice in the cafeteria, rather successfully, I might add. It all depends what their needs are and how much space you can give. You don't have to have a whole full permanent setup. They can go into their space, bring the gear in, fence, and leave. And the safety aspect, that's the big one, and the one that has most misconceptions about the sport. So let's go into that and show you the gear we use. Okay, so here are the three weapons. We have foil, epee, and saber. They all have different target areas, some different gear, different techniques, different rules. Let's go over them one at a time. We'll start with foil. You see how wide the blade is? It's basically a radio antenna. And this is a point only weapon, meaning you have to score at the point only, which looks like this. If I get a camera. There it is. And it's a simple, about 5mm spring-loaded point. You can see it moving here. And you have to hit with about 500 grams of force, which is about a pound, to fire the light. If you're looking at epee, the next weapon, bit bigger bell guard because the entire body is targeting epee. It is also a point weapon. You also have to hit with the point. It's about a 6mm wide tip, also spring-loaded. 750 grams of force, about a pound and a half to hit with. The last one is saber. The target is the waist up except for the hands. There is no depressible point on this one. It's to be wrapped around, folded around itself. This one is simple contact with the scoring surface, which we'll go over when I show the mask. Hang on. Okay, so this is a mask for saber. The epee and foil masks are structurally exactly the same. The only difference is the foil and epee masks are insulated by paint, and they have no conductive fabric. This has an epee and foil from the chin down. It's conductive. See how much of the head it covers. Quite a bit of it, actually. It's held in place by this metal tongue going around the back of the head, and the strap goes around on the back of the head. And so the fabric is called lame. It's conductive fabric right here. And because it has to be, you hit the head on this one, has to electrically conductive to fire the scoring light. In foil, we wear a vest over the target area. That's the same material. In saber, it's a second jacket, same material. In epee, there's no defined target area, so they don't have a lame. But this is the mask. It is the primary piece of safety equipment. and I will show how we check it at the Army Control a little later on. So next would be a plastic chest plate. This is for impact protection only. If you are a male, which this was a male plate, this is optional. If you're a female, it is required. Um, so again, this is impact protection only. But a lot of fencers, even those who are men, do wear them. They might be covering an old surgical site or don't like getting hit hard because hits to the sternum don't feel good. But this is one of the pieces that is optional if you're a boy, mandatory if you're a girl. Next piece. Next we have what we call the underarm protector. This particular one is a left-hander because this is on the left-hand side of the body. Its purpose is to protect the upper body, particularly the armpit, from a puncture from a broken blade, which happens very, very rarely, but you have the protection anyway. One particular point about this is the seam of the underarm goes either side of the center line of the side of the body. The jacket seam goes right down the middle, so the seams do not line up. That's in fact a rule requirement. The seams do not line up because that's structurally a weak spot. But they have this for left and right, and sometimes for both hands if you switch sides. That's underarm protector, and next is the jacket. Here's a jacket. This particular one's a right-hander because the zipper is on the left-hand side, which is over here. And that's because the zipper needs to be away from an oncoming blade. That's another safety feature. And the little triangle crotch area there is a strap that goes beneath your legs, holds that down to keep a blade from going up underneath. This is another prime piece of safety gear that we do wear at all times when we're fencing, and that's the jacket. Next is the glove. So this is the glove for foil and epee. Saber glove is slightly different because it has to have conductive cuff, but the glove is another prime piece of safety gear, and whenever you put it on, its purpose is to not only protect the hand from impact, but also the little cuff here goes over the sleeve of the jacket so blade doesn't go up the sleeve. So that's the glove. Let's look at knickers. And these are the knickers, because they're knickerbockers. They fasten below the knee just like football pants. They do come up higher in the waist because we have a rule that requires the bottom hem of the jacket to overlap the top hem of the knickers by at least 10 centimeters, about 4 inches. We call it the 10 centimeter rule. So the waist comes up to about your belly button, and it's held up by suspenders. And these are basically the fencing pants. And again, these are protective gear. So let's look on to how I actually test gear and control. So let's talk safety checks. When we run a tournament, either a scholastic event or a local or regional or national, we always have what's called weapons control. Depending on the level of the event, the fence will bring a certain gear to check, make sure it's safe to use, and in case of some other things, make sure to work electrically so the scoring system can work properly and the tournament can go smoothly. Mostly we're concerned about the mask and the glove at all events. At anything from regional on up, we'll check the lame, we'll check the cords and whatnot. But at the local and like scholastic event, we're just checking mask and glove for safety. So what I would do, take my mask. First thing I do is hold to the light. I'm looking for any wires out of place, any missing strands of wire, things of that nature that are automatic failures because it's a safety issue. I'm going to feel for any dings and dents that may cause a blade point to catch. Make sure all the rivets are present. And if they are, I'm going to take this probe, which has a spring inside calibrated to 12 kilograms, about 28 pounds. The probe itself is a little wider than the mesh of the mask, which has specific spacing. I'm going to put it against the mesh, perpendicular to the surface, and push it down and up. And that would pass that. That would pass. If it fails, you hear a tink, and the mask probe will punch down through about that far down. And that'd be an instant failure. Mask is dead. In the case of foil masks and the saber lame mask, I'd also check to make sure lame conducts. But if that works, it passes the mask check that I put on a control stamp. Like on the side here, you can see I've been to a few tournaments with this mask. And that's going to be consistent through the event and tells the referees the gear's been checked. So that's what I'm checking for the masks. Next is for the gloves. For the glove, it's a little different check. I'm going to be looking for, make sure the Velcro is nice and tight, that there's no loose flaps of material coming off, there's no holes that aren't design features, no rips, tears, broken seams, things of that nature. If that works, then I would put a stamp down here or on the back side here, showing it's passed, and that would pass the test there. again, tests for cords and limbation is a little different. They're not really safety related, so I'm not going to go into them. Those are in a completely different video, which I'll reference in the description down below. I'll also reference my actual how to perform these test videos, so you can see everything else on the in the description. Now we come to the big one, the safety aspect of the sport that a lot of administrators are concerned about, and it comes from a place of not knowing, because the sport's not very popular. It's not very well known in a lot of areas. Most schools are concerned with football, baseball, basketball, the money-generating sports, the traditional American sports. Sometimes golf or hockey, or question depending on where you are, maybe lacrosse. But fencing is still kind of an outlier a lot. And even though we've had a lot of success internationally, people still don't know about it. So as far as the safety aspect is concerned, fencing actually is an extraordinarily safe sport. There was a study done after the Vancouver Olympics. They compared injury rates between the summer and winter games, and fencing was 10th from the bottom. 10th from the bottom in injury rates. Table tennis was higher than us. Now, you laugh, I know people are, but remember that table tennis is not, at that level, is not ping pong in your grandpa's basement. This is top level table tennis, where there's a lot of force, a lot of joint action that these players are using to fire that ball. In fencing, we're basically trying to stab and slap our friends in a specific target area. You don't have to hit that hard. You don't have to fence like a gorilla. And it actually is extraordinarily safe. In my years of fencing, I've been in this sport for about 30 years now, and I competed for about 5 or 6 years before I started selling equipment and armoring. In that entire time, I cannot count how many bouts have been fenced with me in the building. And I have only once had seen where an ambulance was called, and that was recently when the fencer got punched in the face, fell back, cracked his head on the floor, which is not really a fencing issue, it's more of a collision issue. The worst injury I ever saw personally was a guy fencing me. Came forward, lunged, hit me in the head, was in saber, and his front knee decided to go out. Either a meniscus or ACL tear, I forget which one it was, because it was years and years ago, but that was in front of me, and he was back in the strip 6 months later. Have people been hurt? Seriously, yes. You can be hurt seriously in any sport. You can get hurt seriously walking across the street. You can get hurt seriously sitting in class. All right? The big worry is fencing, the swords are dangerous. They're not dangerous at all. I could take my saber, slap you across the chest as hard as I could. It would sting like hell, but it wouldn't do any appreciable damage. If I did it with a baseball bat from the baseball team, I'd cave in your rib cage. Fencing is far, far safer than any other sport. If you have a football team, in a 4-year high school football career, your players stand a 25% chance of an emergency room trip for concussion, broken bone, sometimes even fatality. Okay? Every year, almost every year, we have some kid playing football who dies as a direct result of the game or practice. Fencing is 0.09%. Multiple strains and sprains, typically. Some light bruising, maybe some light contusions from hard hits. But in that, we're extremely safe if all the rules are followed. Okay? And then I'll hear from administrators, yeah, but somebody died doing fencing. Yeah, back in 1982, 40 plus years ago, when there were no manufacturer standards, fencers had to be responsible for their own control checks, and we didn't have the safety gear we have now. The fencer's name was Vladimir Smirnov, again, historically linked in the description. He was a Soviet fencer. At the time he was killed, he was one of the top fencers in the world. He was the defending Olympic and world men's foil champ. So he was getting hit with a lot harder force and a lot more precise hits than beginning fencers. His death, tragic as it was, is why we're a safer sport. And again, his video will explain that. But that's the safety angles of fencing. Again, I don't know how many bouts have been fenced with me in the building. It has to be up in the hundreds of thousands over 30 years. And almost no serious injuries. There usually are some higher level events that are getting medical personnel on site, dealing with the ankle twists and whatnot. But it is extremely safe sport. I invite you, before you decide to not let a fencing club start, actually go to a club, watch the sport. If there's an event nearby, go watch it on YouTube. Talk to fencers, talk to people like me who are armors. We know this stuff. Don't just out of hand say no. Look into it. It's a hell of a sport. It's a lot of fun, and it can give you the same benefits to your students as football, baseball, basketball, the marching arts, or anything else can. Have a good one.